Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Welcome sa isa na namang episode ng PNU Talks online series ni Inang Pamantasan kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hangganan. Ito po ang inyong lingkod, Ginang Rona Fuentespina-De Torre ng Bayabas Elementary School, DepEd Division of Cadiz City, Negros Occidental, a graduate of Philippine Normal University Visayas Batch 2000. Ako po ang inyong home learning buddy today. Samahan niyo po akong pag-aralan ang isa na namang mahalagang paraan ng pagkatuto bilang paghahanda sa nalalapit na pagbubukas ng klase. I-type lamang po ang inyong mga kuro-kuro o katanungan sa ating comment section at huwag kalimutang i-like o pusuan at i-share ang episode na ito.
Ito na marahil ang pinakabago sa lahat ng mga bago sa panahong ito. Ano nga ba ang new normal? According to the Department of Health, Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, or DOH-RITM, after the onslaught of COVID-19, the paradigm of the new normal in the public health sector has emerged. At the core of it, the new normal is a new way of thinking about, deciding on, and doing our usual affairs with an invigorated sense to remain healthy. By what? First, by reducing vulnerability by keeping a healthy lifestyle. So we can do routine exercises, eat healthy foods, keep our mental and emotional well-being, and reducing virus transmission by observing infection control measures. For example, by wearing appropriate face masks and keeping 1 to 2 meters physical distance. Another is by reducing contact with a potential disease carrier. That is why our local governments have set up quarantine areas or healing centers to isolate our locally stranded individuals and OFW repatriates. Another is by reducing the duration of the infection by establishing effective disease management mechanisms in our hospitals and clinics. Ensuring governance and accountability by putting in place strong health regulations and policies. So in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, ang ating pong pamahalaan ay mayroon ng mga batas na inimplement ukol sa pagpapahalaga ng ating health, okay? At kung ano pa ang maaaring gawin ng ating komunidad upang maibsan, maiwasan ang pagdami ng mga cases ng COVID-19. Ang new normal ay nagdadala rin sa atin ng new problems, new solutions, and new results. Ano nga ba ang mga maaaring problema nito sa context ng edukasyon? So in education context, we can encounter public health problems. How do we keep our teachers, our school personnel, our parents, especially our students, safe and secure in schools and even their homes? We also have a problem on physical and human resources. So our schools may lack classrooms, equipment, even funding, even teachers and learning resources or learning materials like books and workbooks. We also have a problem on internet connectivity. It has been an accepted fact that in Asia, the Philippines has the slowest or the weakest internet connectivity. Medyo mahina po ang ating bandwidth sa Pilipinas, hindi kagaya sa ibang bansa sa Asia. Meron din tayong problema sa equity gap between the rich and the poor. Napakalaki po ng pagkakaiba ng mga pamilyang may kaya sa mga pamilyang medyo mahirap in terms of access to learning opportunities, availability of gadgets like Android phones, laptops, and even the sustainability on internet connection. Another problem is the pedagogical and technical skills of our teachers. Are they ready technically for the new normal teaching and learning facilitation? We also have instructional and administrative leadership problems. So ang ating mga school heads ay
ay medyo challenge din sa pag-manage ng remote instructional leadership. Paano ba gagawin ito? Mayroon din tayong problema tungkol sa assessment and evaluation of students' performance. Pareho lang ba ang pag-evaluate ng performances ng ating mga estudyante sa traditional learning na nandoon ang mga estudyante sa loob ng classroom sa kanilang mga paaralan? At after all of this, in the end, titingnan natin ang ano nga ba ang impact ng lahat ng ating mga decisions and actions sa quality of learning ng edukasyon na i-offer natin pagdating ng August 24. So with those problems, we have possible solutions. First, the observance of minimum health protocols. Wearing of face masks, observance of 1 to 2 meter physical distance, avoiding crowds, alcohol rub from time to time, proper hand washing, and so on. No? Even wearing of personal protective equipment like face shields or the PPEs, like what our health workers are wearing in hospitals. Another solution is the strengthening of online learning platforms. Ano-ano ba ang mga available online learning platforms sa Pilipinas? Then, program creation and health integration, in the classrooms, at the level of the classrooms and schools. Kailangang i-integrate ng ating mga teachers ang how to care for oneself, no? Health-wise, physically, mentally. At dapat magkaroon talaga ng program para ma-involve natin ang ating communities, no, sa pag-promote ng pagiging health conscious ng lahat. And another solution is to upskill and retool our teachers. Kailangan talaga ng ating mga guro ng maximum support sa panahong ito dahil hindi po madali ang mag-upskill at mag-aral ng mga makabagong technologies, especially with the use of the internet. Dahil hindi naman po lahat ng ating mga guro ay ready para dito. Ang DepEd po ay nagkaroon ng survey bago pa man nakapagdesisyon na talagang ituloy ang klase sa Agosto. Subalit, tinatanggap po ng DepEd at lahat naman ng mga learning institutions sa bansa na kailangan talagang mag-training ang ating teachers para maging handa sila sa hamon ng makabagong panahon. Ito nga po yung hamon ng new normal. So with those problems and solutions, what do we foresee as results? So we are right now in a state of flux. Everything is so changeable. What is true today may not be true tomorrow. So hindi pa po natin alam kung ano nga ba ang magiging resulta o impact ng lahat ng ating mga desisyon at aksyon. Subalit, sa walang kasiguraduhan na ito, yun po ang dapat na magpatatag sa ating mga loob upang ipagpatuloy ang laban ng edukasyon. Dahil hindi po natin maaaring paghintayin ang ating mga estudyante. Kailangan po nilang matuto, no, ng continuously. No? And with that continuous learning, we expect that one day we can bring back normalcy to our lives despite the threat of the COVID-19. So our topic today is blended learning. Okay. How can blended learning bring education closer to the community? What do we expect to learn from this session? On blended learning, we shall learn about its definition, the key principles, the differences between the traditional and the blended learning model, what are the benefits and challenges of blended learning, and what are the blended learning models available. We proceed to the definition of blended learning. Marami po ang definition ng blended learning. Subalit, ito ang pinaka-generic at most agreed by all. No? It is a combination of offline or face-to-face traditional learning and online learning in a way that one complements the other. So sa blended learning po ay mayroong face-to-face or traditional learning at mayroong online, no? Online learning at yung best ng face-to-face learning at yung best feature ng online learning would complement each other. Tinatawag din po itong hybrid learning. Hybrid kasi ika nga kagaya sa mga crossbred or hybrid na aso, yung best feature ng isang species at yung best feature ng another species kapag pinag-combine ay nakakagawa o nagre-resulta sa isang mas magandang species or kind. This is hybrid learning or blended learning. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga key principles of blended learning? So in blended learning, students who can share information and work with other students directly in a collaborative setting have a more enriched learning experience. And collaboration between students can be improved upon if group activities rely on information gathered from online resources or lessons. So isang napakahalagang principle ng blended learning is collaboration and enriched learning experience. If our students would collaborate and share information, no, share performances, they will find that they have enriched learning experiences. That is when they collaborate productively. Students who complete online coursework followed by interactive face-to-face class activities have richer educational experiences. Kapag mayroon pong balance ng face-to-face class activities at saka online activities, ay nagkakaroon po ng mas mayaman, mas mayabong or richer na educational experiences ang ating mga estudyante. They get the best of both worlds. Tools and platforms that complement blended learning include learners' materials and mobile devices such as tablets, smartphones, and even laptops. So kailangan po talaga sa blended learning ang mga gadgets or tools na ito. Let's proceed to the characteristics of blended learning. First, it is online. There is online and offline learning in blended learning. There is instructor involvement, there is independent learning, there is peer interaction, and support for learner. For online and offline learning, learners may take classes over the internet in a classroom with one or more teachers standing by to help them complete their work. So maaari pong mayroong isa, dalawa, or tatlong guro ang nagsusupervise habang ang mga estudyante ay gumagawa ng kanilang online coursework. No? Online or offline coursework. Instructor involvement. Those who take online learning from home can interact with their teachers online through message boards and emails. Maaari pa rin pong silang makipag-ugnayan sa kanilang mga guro gamit ang message boards, emails, or comment sections ng platform na kanilang ginagamit. Blended learning also is characterized by independent learning. Blended learning programs allow learners to learn on their own and to use the materials and resources presented in ways that work best for them. So there is independent learning because students tend to learn on their own. Bibigyan sila ng materials and resources at dito ilalabas ang kanilang creativity and innovativeness, no, in ways that best support them, or in ways that work best for them. Of course, our students have different learning styles. They have diverse interests, no? They have different inclinations. So dyan lalabas ang kanilang creativity and innovation if they work independently. So learners in traditional classrooms will have their peers sitting right next to them, which lets them work together on assignments. Kapag traditional classrooms, syempre magkakatabi ang mga estudyante. So maaari silang gumawa ng kanilang assignments or any seat work halimbawa, at maaari silang makipag-ugnayan, makipag-interact, magtanong, okay? Or mag-exchange ng ideas sa kanilang mga seatmates. Learners in online classes can interact with others via the class message boards or forum. So maaari pa rin sila mag-interact sa online classes gamit ang mga message boards or iba't ibang forums. That is on peer interaction. Online learning also, or blended learning also, is characterized by support for learners. Learners are offered all the help and support they need, both through offline meetings and online solutions. So, kanino ba manggagaling ang support na ito? So, maaari pong mag-support ang ating mga schools sa pamamagitan ng ating mga teachers, sa ating homes, sa pamamagitan ng support ng ating families, parents, no, responsible adults, even our communities, our community leaders, no, maaari silang magbigay ng kanilang suporta sa pagko-collaborate or pagbibigay ng kung anumang impormasyon o tulong upang ma-facilitate ng maayos ang teaching and learning process sa blended learning. Tingnan naman natin ngayon ang pagkakaiba ng blended learning at traditional learning model. Sa traditional method, we have this very effective, widely used teaching strategy, no? The explicit teaching strategy na gumagamit ng I do, we do, you do, and then proceed to assessment. On the other hand, sa blended learning naman ay mayroong face-to-face at e-learning or online learning. Kapag sinama mo silang dalawa, ikaw ay magkakaroon ng blended learning modality. Ang blended learning ay parang chunky mix of fruit salad rather than a smoothie. You mix the face-to-face interaction with the online learning and then you get blended learning experience. Kung saan, students or learners may move at their own pace. So, mayroong mga slow learners, maaring may average learners or fast learners, no? So, hindi pa problema yan pagdating sa blended learning. Students may engage when they are most alert. When they are ready, they could engage online. And another beauty is they can take breaks when needed. So maaari silang mag-relax, maaari silang kumain, maaari silang mag-unwind sandali, no? Kapag medyo they're already overloaded with information. So maaari pong gawin yan sa blended learning. So what's the difference between traditional and blended learning? Tingnan po natin. Yung traditional method, your traditional model, ay time-based. Ibig sabihin, mayroong specific na allocation time allocation, per subject area sa traditional learning model. Samantalang sa blended learning model ay mastery-based po ito. Ibig sabihin, walang specific na time allocation para pag-aralan or i-master ng isang estudyante ang specific learning competency. Depende po sa kanyang bilis or sa kanyang kung gaano siya kabilis matuto. In the traditional learning model, all learners get the materials, they are assessed, and they moved on all at the same time, regardless of individual performance or learning gaps. So sabay-sabay po sila, halimbawa, mayroong 40 pupils in one class. So in a day, a teacher, for example, is set to deliver and facilitate a topic on one particular learning competency. So kailangan lahat ng estudyante, as much as possible, would be able to master or display a certain level of competence in that learning competency. So bali talagang meron tayong mga struggling no? Slow, average, and fast learners. At hindi natin maiiwasan na in a day or in a day's lesson, talagang mayroong mabibehind or mayroong talaga namang mabilis matapos o talagang mabilis makuha ang learning competency. However, in the blended learning model, it acknowledges that some learners need more time and others may need less time, and it gives as much time as needed. Learners move forward when ready. So, depende po talaga sa learners or students kung gaano siya kabilis matuto. Let's try to check the benefits of blended learning. First, blended learning has this benefit of inclusion of more differentiated and personalized instruction. Dahil nga po blended siya and it respects individual differences, no? It's more learner-centered, nagkakaroon ng mas maraming opportunities for the teacher to differentiate and personalize instruction. Depende sa needs and capacities ng mga bata. There is also increased access to resources, experts, and learning opportunities. Resources online, napakarami ng very vast ang access to resources dahil napakaraming reliable sites, what else? Maaari pang mag-contact o makipag-communicate sa mga online experts online, no, through emails, no, and so on. And then learning opportunities, so they can watch videos, video tutorials, no, podcasts, and many other things. So they can do many things, no, on the internet. Lahat po yata nasa internet na. Ang importante lamang ay malaman or mai-guide ang ating mga estudyante kung ang tamang paraan or ang safe na paraan upang gamitin ang lahat ng mga platforms online. Another benefit of blended learning is more authentic and student-driven tasks. Dahil nga po sa differentiated and personalized instruction, at students tend to move at their own pace, no? Ang kanilang learning ay maaaring i-measure or i-assess sa pamamagitan ng mga authentic assessment. Or titingnan kung ang natutunan ba ng isang estudyante ay maaari niyang i-apply sa kanyang sariling pamumuhay, sa context ng kanyang family, or sa context ng kanyang community. No? Another benefit of blended learning is exposure to a wide range of technologies and acquisition of contemporary literacy skills. Wide range of technologies. So, lahat ng technologies pwedeng matutunan ng mga estudyante sa blended learning. Okay? Kapag ituturo ito or gagamitin ito ng teacher, no? With the guidance of the teacher. And of course, responsible adults at home or in the community. While the student does that, natututo rin siya ng contemporary literacy skills. Ano ba ang mga contemporary literacy skills na ito? More on the side of information and communications technology. Natututo rin siyang i-improve or i-enhance ang kanyang communication skills. Hindi ba? Isa pang benefit ng blended learning ay accessibility. It's learning anytime, anywhere, for as long as you have the access to the internet, for as long as you have the gadget. No? Kahit nakahiga ka, kahit bumibiyahe ka, maaari kang matuto, no? Sa blended learning. Isa pang benefit po nito ay ang increase in learning outcome measures. According to research studies, mataas po ang learning outcomes ng mga estudyanteng nag-undergo ng blended learning kumpara sa traditional learning model. So, yun po ang ilan sa mga benefits ng blended learning. Tingnan naman natin ngayon, ano nga ba ang mga challenges ng blended learning? So, isa sa mga challenge ay developing blended learning pedagogy. Handa ba ang ating mga guro na gawin or i-facilitate ang blended learning? Ang ating bang curriculum ay designed for blended learning? Our teacher support and professional development. Our teachers, as I have said, need professional and technical support. Kailangan natin silang i-upskill and i-reboot, no? Upang maging handa sa hamon ng pag-implement ng blended learning. So kailangan natin ng mas intensive and purposeful or targeted na learning and development activities, no? Capacity building activities. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga challenges ng blended learning? First, on developing blended learning pedagogy. Are our teachers ready for this? Have they been trained for this? Ang ating bang curriculum ay designed for blended learning? Ang ating din mga teachers ay kailangan ng support and professional development. Kailangan natin silang i-upskill or i-reboot, no, ang kanilang mga skills para maging handa sila sa pag-facilitate or pag-employ o pag-implement ng blended learning. So kailangan ng intensive at saka targeted ng mga learning and development activities, mga capability projects or programs for teachers. Another challenge is the technological challenges, both for schools, for families, and communities. Ang ating bang mga pamilya ay handa na mai-provide ang mga kailangang gadgets and sustainable funds for blended learning dahil hindi po lahat, no? We have to admit, hindi po lahat ay ready for this. Also, another challenge is of course ang internet connectivity, ang bandwidth ng isang lugar. Stable ba ang internet connection? Okay. One more is student preparation, parental support, and home environment. Ready ba ang ating mga estudyante? Have they been oriented of their new roles to take on in the blended learning model? Our parents also, are they willing to provide emotional, financial, no, and psychological support to their learners in this time of pandemic? Dahil more than ever, kailangan talaga ngayon ng ating mga estudyante ang full support ng kanilang mga magulang at kanilang mga pamilya. Ang ating pang home environment ay conducive sa teaching and learning processes. Mayroon bang mga safe and secure study spaces ng ating mga estudyante sa kani-kanilang mga tahanan? So kailangan po yan ng ating mga bata sa blended learning. One more challenge is assessment considerations. How would our teachers assess and evaluate whether or not students have really learned the learning competency? So sa blended learning po ay kailangan sa blended learning po ay mas ginagamit ang reflective learning. Kailangan mag-reflect ng mga estudyante kung ano nga ba ang kanilang natutunan in a particular lesson. Okay? Nauuso rin ang feedback giving sa assessment when it comes to blended learning. Also, mga special projects, no? Special projects, learnings from the classrooms or learnings online should have to be translated to what they can do, what this learning can do to the context of families and the context of communities. Another challenge is culture and innovation. Kailangan po may culture of innovation sa ating mga schools. So teachers need to innovate and look for better ways of doing things. Wala pong mali, no? Sa mga practices. However, isa pa pong hamon sa blended learning ay ang culture and innovation. Kailangan po magkaroon ng culture ng pag-innovate ang ating mga teachers. Our teachers have to find better ways of doing things at hindi maging kontento sa kung ano lamang po ang ating alam sa kasalukuyan. Kailangan nating maghanap ng better ways of doing things. Tingnan naman natin ang mga pinaka-common na blended learning models. So there are 4 models of blended learning according to Christensen Institute, Christensen Horn, and Staker in 2014. So first we have the rotation model, flex model, a la carte model, and the enriched virtual model. Ano nga ba ang rotation model? So this model allows learners to rotate through stations on a fixed schedule where at least one of the stations is an online learning station. So kailangan talaga sa blended learning may online na station sa rotation learning model. Ang teacher should program a particular schedule when to have an online teaching and face-to-face teaching learning experiences. Halimbawa po, sa first week of classes ay online ang mga estudyante. Pagdating ng second week of classes ay magkakaroon sila ng face-to-face interaction. Ang rotation model po ay mayroon pang mga subcategories. The first one is station rotation. Dito ay mayroong dalawang teacher. Ang isa ay ang regular teacher at ang isa ay ang floating teacher. Yung regular teacher will facilitate the teacher-led instruction. Yan yung face-to-face instruction. And then, the floating teacher will facilitate the online instruction and the collaborative activities and stations. So yan po ang station rotation. Another is the lab rotation. So sa lab rotation, mayroong halimbawa direct instruction in math and science, mayroon ding direct instruction on literacy and social studies, and then mayroong direct instruction on math and science and sa learning laboratory, reading, and mathematics. Mayroon pa rin pong dalawang teachers. Isang teacher, isang regular teacher, at isang para-professional teacher na siyang magpa-facilitate ng learning sa learning laboratory. Isa pa po ay ang individual rotation. So sa individual rotation, mayroong halimbawang intervention. So ang estudyante ay first, halimbawa, mag-a-attend siya ng intervention classes, then proceed to direct instruction, or proceed to group projects, and then proceed to another one that is seminar. So, magro-rotate siya sa iba't ibang stations. One more is the flipped classroom. So, sa flipped classroom, sa school or face-to-face interaction, doon gagawin ang lahat ng mga practice and projects. Pagdating naman sa pamamahay or sa home, ay online instruction and content. Lahat ng mga content or mga knowledge and mga theories halimbawa ay pag-aaralan online. Subalit ang practice at paggawa ng project ay gagawin sa school under the supervision of the teacher. Isa pang model ng blended learning is the flex model. Here, learners move on fluid schedules among learning activities according to their needs. Teachers provide support and instruction on a flexible, as needed basis while learners work through a course and content. This model can give learners a high degree of control over their learning. Ito po ang flexible model ng blended learning. Fluid ang kanilang schedule, ibig sabihin wala silang specific time frame when to learn or when to finish specific learning competencies. The teacher should teach online most of the time. And face-to-face with the learners can only be done when needed anytime. So most of the time po ay online ang pagtuturo ng ating mga kaguruan sa flexible model ng blended learning. At magkakaroon lamang po sila ng face-to-face interaction kapag deemed necessary or deemed needed ng teacher. Ito po ang illustration ng ating flexible model or flex model. Halimbawa ay mag-a-attend ang estudyante ng intervention classes, no? And then, maaari siyang mag-attend ng breakout classes. No? Maaari rin siyang mag-attend ng science lab or pumunta sa collaborative rooms or another breakout room. Ito naman po ang illustration ng ating flex model. Halimbawa, ang isang estudyante ay maaaring umattend ng intervention class, maaari rin siyang pumunta ng breakout room or science laboratory or collaborative rooms and another breakout rooms. So flexible at wala siyang definite or specific schedule for this. Isa pa pong model ay ang a la carte model. It enables learners to take an online course with an online teacher in addition to other face-to-face courses, which often provides learners with more flexibility over their schedules. Tingnan po natin ang illustration ng a la carte model. So, ang isang estudyante ay maaaring pumunta ng school to attend her or his face-to-face interaction class, and then maaari rin siyang magkaroon ng isa pang online teacher, no, na siya po ang maaaring pumili nito. No? Depende po sa expertise at sa interest ng estudyante. Another model ng blended learning is the a la carte model. It enables learners to take an online course with an online teacher in addition to other face-to-face courses, which often provides learners with more flexibility over their schedules. So halimbawa po nito, ang isang estudyante ay mag-a-attend po ng kanyang face-to-face classes sa isang school. Maaari rin po siyang magkaroon ng isa pang online teacher, depende sa expertise ng teacher at of course sa interest ng estudyante. And then, maaari rin po siyang magkaroon ng home studies, no? Whether online, under the supervision of parents or any responsible adults, at maaari rin po siyang pumunta sa isang learning laboratory. All of this are part of the blended learning. Ito po ang tinatawag na a la carte model. And the last model for today is the enriched virtual model. It is an alternative to full-time online program that allows learners to complete the majority of coursework online at home, but attend classes for required face-to-face learning sessions with a teacher. Ang enriched virtual model, sa enriched virtual model, the teacher should teach online method most of the time. There will be face-to-face teaching with the learner. This is the last blended learning model, yung enriched virtual model. It is an alternative to full-time online program that allows learners to complete the majority of coursework online at home, but attend classes for required face-to-face learning sessions with a teacher. Dito po, the teacher should teach online method most of the time. So face-to-face teaching with the learner is required at least once a month. So minsan lamang po maghaharap si teacher at ang kanyang estudyante sa enriched virtual model. Majority po ng kanyang coursework ay gagawin niya online at the comfort of his or her home. Ito po ang illustration ng enriched virtual model. So sa school ay magkakaroon ng face-to-face supplementation ng kanyang learning sa bahay with online instruction and content. Puntahan po natin ngayon ang ilan sa summary and conclusions ng ating session today. So adopting a blended learning approach offers the appeal of combining different learning elements using the power of ICT or information and communications technology while retaining a human touch. So sa blended learning model po ay nandoon pa rin po ang human interaction. So again, we get the best of the online learning and we get the best of face-to-face learning. Ang blended learning model should describe a planned
and deliberate educational activity that integrates student-centered learning, classroom-based teaching, and learning with mobile and web-based learning approaches based on individual learners and their specific needs. So, importante po sa blended learning model ang purposeful and targeted planning by the teacher. Kailangan po talagang nakaplano ng maayos upang walang masayang na efforts, resources, at oras sa blended learning. Dahil sa blended learning, ang focus ay ang mga estudyante at kung ano ba ang kanilang mga individual learners' needs at mga individual learners' weaknesses, no, and limitations, and even strengths. So one more is the 21st century learning environment provides avenues for students, parents, educators, and the larger community to share information, collaborate, and engage in learning in secure spaces. This is the time, no, for our entire communities to be involved in the learning of our students. Ika nga ng isang timeless, no, African proverb or African saying on education, it takes a village to educate a child. Everyone po in the community, in the society, has a stake in the education of our students, in the education of our learners. Lahat po tayo ay may contribute kung paano natin i-facilitate ang teaching and learning process sa panahong ito. The underpinning notion of blended learning is that teachers need to be upskilled quickly to cope, to stay relevant, and be effective teaching learning facilitators in the new normal context. Kailangan po ng tulong ng ating mga kaguruan at ng kani-kanilang mga school heads at iba pang educational leaders upang maisagawa po ng maayos ang continuity of education. So ang blended learning ay nag-e-empower ng ating learners, their families, and communities to create and nurture positive learning environments. We are all empowered in the blended learning model. Lahat po tayo ay mayroong positive na maaaring i-contribute sa ating learners. And while the education sector carries most of the burden, the role of the local government units is crucial. Malaki po ang papel ng ating mga LGUs at ng ating mga local leaders, no, sa continuity ng education in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ang ating pong mga local government leaders ay maaaring maging education champions sa panahong ito. Maaari po nilang isulong, no, ang mga interests at concerns ng edukasyon sa pamamagitan ng pag-align ng mga resources sa education goals sa panahong ito. Akin pong nabasa sa Philippine Daily Inquirer, sinabi ni Ching George na while the future remains unknown, by working together to support and empower the education ecosystems in our communities, we can help establish the structures that our students will need to receive the quality education they deserve and bring stability in a time of uncertainty. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikinig.
Sa muli, ito po si Ginang Rona Fuentespina de la Torre. Maraming salamat at naway pagpalain po tayong lahat.